Hi everyone, welcome to WeeklyWed from Business School of AI. WeeklyWed is our happy place to share, learn, discuss, and explore. WeeklyWed occurs every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm your host, Yashaswini Vishwanath, and you can call me Yash. I'm logging from Bangalore, India, and I would like to know where you're all from. Please type away your name and location in the chat. We would like to get to know you better. I'm an AI researcher who focuses on responsible AI. I'm also pursuing my master's in artificial intelligence from RACE. At WeeklyWed, we empower and enable our students to break into AI or to explore and deep dive. Generally, we host speakers from varied backgrounds working on AI and ally technologies. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Bhuva Subram. Bhuva is a fintech transformation entrepreneur at Wallet Max, passionate about ESG inclusion and sustainable digital innovation. She has managed diverse global teams and launched several technology products as an executive with Capgemini in the investment banking and regulatory compliance industry. With an MBA from Columbia University, Bhuva leads Women in AI nonprofit for North America and is an early stage investor in social impact startups with a mission to accelerate education and economic growth. Hi, Bhuva. Welcome to WeeklyWed. I offer a very warm welcome from all the students here, and the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Yash, and thanks, Sudha, Susanna, for giving me this opportunity. I see a couple of familiar faces also. Excited to be talking to everyone today.
So, Bhuva, we would like to start with the FinTech and AI topic. So we would like to have a deep dive into this topic from you based on your journey that you have had.
Sure. So predominantly, let's say FinTech is a fancy word for technology to solve financial problems. So why is it more popular recently, especially post-pandemic, and also how leveraging AI has only enhanced financial solutions to reach mass communities instead of certain corporations. So it's where FinTech and AI meet together. In simple terms, financial technology literally means applying technology to business problems that take finance to individuals rather than individuals going to larger institutions, which have several obstacles, especially in underbanked and unbanked communities. In terms of FinTech, there are several categories. Let's say regulatory technology, which is the area I focus in, which involves applying AI and data privacy practices to compliance in terms of either corporate finance or finance for individuals. There are other areas in FinTech, likely, let's say, InsurTech. How can you get better insurance without relying on larger institutions and much quickly, even if you don't have resources? And that's the beauty of it. There is other ways, other things like payment technology and so on and so forth. So that's a broad example of how technology solving independent challenges in a more agile and accessible way that falls under the FinTech umbrella.
So Bhuva, technology is ever changing. Innovation is always around the corner. The confluence of technology and finance led to FinTech. And now we see the new wave of FinTech and AI. and new solutions to problems in this space. What are your thoughts on this new confluence? How will it impact the society we live in?
Sure, definitely. So like I mentioned, I specifically focus on regulatory technology, which falls under financial technology. So within regulatory technology, it impacts each one of our lives on a day-to-day basis, at least predominantly in the North American region. And I think it's applied in various ways in other regions as well. So in earlier days, if you have to get, let's say, a loan or get a credit score, apply for credit or open a bank account or get a microloan for your small business and so on and so forth, there is a lot of predetermined rules with traditional institutions that number one may delay the process, or number two may have bias embedded into that, and number three, they are not as real time with evolving nature of your own lifestyle plus the market conditions. And this is where artificial intelligence predominantly comes into play, where we are not using static data, but rather learning from large sets of data. We are also making financial decisions based on the individual's behavior, risk adjusted, right? So when you got the loan or credit, you may have a higher risk, then over time you may have a lower risk. Taking all that into consideration and making it real time to the lifestyle of a person involves leveraging artificial intelligence and large data set processing. And that's where I see it's going to impact people and society at large, instead of just being restricted to large corporations.
Can you tell us about Capgemini and FinTech Wiser and the innovations that are happening in that segment? I can see around 600 bankers and insurers regularly search for their next partner on the portal. So can you tell us about that?
Sure. So Capgemini is a financial services consulting firm. Typically, Capgemini or IBM is in the space, Accenture is in the space. These large companies work with investment banks or commercial banks or large insurers to solve a business problem. Then those businesses take the product to customers, right? Like for example, if you want to do digital banking, Capgemini, IBM, Accenture kind of companies build products with AI or blockchain or related technologies, and then that product is consumed by day-to-day folks like us. With this FinTech Wiser program, what we are doing is, and this involves number one, bias, as I mentioned. There is less transparency in the rules applied. There is also a longer processing time in taking one product to the consumer. So corporations are partnering with smaller startups to solve these challenges. So startups do not have financial resources. Corporations have resources, but they need a nimble solution that are being built by startups. So with this FinTech Wiser program, I'm involved in evaluating startups globally, identifying potential startups that can work with corporations and investment banks and can take a financial product to market much faster in a more agile manner.
Bhuva, you come with 22 years experience in the fintech domain, mainly in Capgemini. You've done many roles in marquee logos while you're the Senior Director of Finance, Credit, Compliance, Payment Transformation. Could you tell us what is your motivation towards fintech, and could you explain your work as Senior Director?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for that. So most of my work involves digital innovation and transformation of products that address a financial problem for individual customers or corporates. So I'll take a simple example. I started in this field very long time ago. So traditionally what happens when you go to a bank, you want to open a bank account, the bank is going to assess your risk and so on and so forth. These were traditionally coded either using legacy technologies, were hard coded with no room to flexibly accommodate market conditions or your behaviors. And over time, we have moved these into artificial intelligence and machine learning models, which have been very effective in assessing real-time risk, triggering fraud calculations separately, right? So we don't want to allow a fraudulent activity to go through the system. And these are processed using large data sets in hardly fraction of seconds. And I also work with the trading platforms, especially like how we have individual credit scores, credit ratings, and so on and so forth. Even large corporations and countries have scoring and rating mechanism. Like, for example, we have the pandemic, the war is happening in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. So how do each of the trading systems in all countries behave immediately in real time based on data they receive on the market change or the industry change or a local government behavior is what I do at Capgemini, building products that solve the challenges.
Automation is engineering coupled with extensive domain expertise. Automation brings in reduction of man hours and creation of expert systems that can do a multitude of tasks for humans. Your expertise in the confluence of fintech and automation as Digital Center of Excellence Advisor and World Fintech and Retail Banking Reports Industry Expert is something that is which from which we can learn. Your experiences from this are multitude. What is the mindset that one should have while learning about this domain and career pivot? Did your engineering degree help you in the automation domain?
Definitely, definitely. So I came into the field of computers even before AI was a thing, right? So which means automation existed even before artificial intelligence existed. I would say to get into this field, predominantly don't just also focus on a technical skill. Always have an idea of how that technical skill will solve a business problem. It could be a business problem or even a societal problem, a community empowerment or an individual empowerment, because technology is going to be changing. Even tomorrow, there could be a new technology. But how a business problem can be solved, can be automated, can be made seamless and integrated to a person's lifestyle is very, very important, so that as technology evolves, we are able to address that challenge. More importantly, not just using technology to build products to solve a challenge, it's also very important to understand the non-functional aspects, right? For example, is your system capable of scaling, let's say, beyond your company to a country or few countries? Is your system robust enough to handle a cybersecurity challenge? Is your system able to process large sets of data without performance implications and is able to produce real-time results? So a simple guidance will be not just focus on technology as a skill, which is going to be evolving, but rather also focus on what you can do to solve a business problem. How can something be automated that produces a quantifiable improvement in a person's life? It's very, very important to survive in the automation sector.
We had a glimpse of your fintech journey. Overall, what were the challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them? What are the key learnings that you can give to our students about developing expertise and diving deep into fintech?
Sure. I know it's outside fintech as an industry. This is prevalent in all industries, right? In my view, diversity is a real challenge, especially very high in fintech, right? For the reason we have traditional institutions across banking, insurance, and trading sectors that are predominantly not so diverse. Hence, decision making, working with teams, the data sets, they all involve a lot of bias, and it involves beyond just knowing a technical skill to cross through those hurdles. So the goal would be to definitely, let's say, find a company or a mentor where there is more diversity and inclusion in terms of your thoughts in building products rather than the face value of the company. So in summary, the predominant challenge I would say is a diversity challenge.
We have a question. Sudha is asking, are there unique challenges in bringing tech to fintech? Is it about compliance or something more?
So I come from the compliance sector, so it's very, very, very close to my heart, right? So compliance is ever changing and it is real time. And you may have some compliance today, tomorrow there could be something new. So you have to build your systems to be more flexible, to be robust enough to handle any compliance, right? For example, earlier crypto was not regulated, now it's going to be regulated, especially in the financial industry. In financial tech industry, beyond compliance, the decisions you make may impact people's lives in, let us say, at their family level or at the community level. So beyond just data and compliance and technology, a human element is very, very important. It may look like by automating and using artificial intelligence, the human element may be missing, but what we are trying to do is having financial data, algorithms, and models combined with human behavior enables better risk-based decision making, and hence the human element is very important beyond compliance and technology.
Is automation, we have a question from Susanna, is automation helping diversity issues and access to financial services to everyone, or is it exaggerating the problem?
A very good question, Susanna. It is actually showing us the areas where we need to focus more, right? So automation in terms of not only finance, but also digital inclusion, right? So how can you automate and take a financial product, let's say online banking service, to certain communities who may not even have access to either internet or computers or smartphones or bandwidth to process an online banking app, right? So automation not only involves just building a product, but also ensuring, are we able to reach those pockets of community where there is a gap to even intake a financial product? For example, digital inclusion comes before financial inclusion.
AI winter is over, and we see innovation in AI space happening at a rapid pace. It could be theoretical research or application level where new problems are being solved in AI. When I read about women in AI, I see many initiatives to encourage innovation in this space. Can you tell us about some initiatives and their impact?
Sure. And I think I have a couple of my team members also from Women in AI here. So within North America, what we do is, so we have a community that's very diverse in demographics. So when I say diverse in demographics, what I mean is we have students who are trying to just learn AI and get into the field, or we have someone who has a PhD, who has a lot of experience in some industry, let's say for example, healthcare, and is trying to learn AI and shift into AI, not to become an AI engineer, rather how they can apply AI to a industry problem, let's say better healthcare, right? So we also have a community members who want to launch their own startups, especially this trend is more exaggerated post-pandemic, right? With the great resignation and everything going on, people are inclined to solve certain challenges in their own communities or for themselves by building their own startups. The challenge with artificial intelligence startups, or even especially women in AI building startups, is number one, you need a lot of funds and resources to even launch something at scale. You cannot, let's say, leave a full-time job while you're trying to launch a startup. Number three, if you go to an external institution, you may be asked for a fee or equity in your new company. And as you can see, the report just came out, funding for women entrepreneurs is extremely low. It's like less than 2%. Last year, it was less than 3%. So we thought there is a gap, and we launched our own program that kind of helps an individual, regardless of their skill set in artificial intelligence, to help fill the gaps, right? For example, you can learn artificial intelligence brand new, free of cost, get a curriculum, get hands-on lab expertise, build a portfolio, getting mentorship from corporates or industry experts with PhDs. Or you can take it one step forward, do a small hackathon, connect with like-minded community members, build something and donate it to the community for open source, which someone else can take it forward and research on it or do something with it. Thirdly, and more importantly, we also help several diverse entrepreneurs to launch artificial intelligence startups. But our focus is not just any AI startup, but solve a social impact challenge, right? So apply artificial intelligence for better education, resolve poverty, or better financial inclusion. So we provide all of this free of cost, whether you are just learning AI or transitioning into AI or want to build your own product with AI without any cost.
Bhuva, we have another question from Sudha. We had Carolina Suarez speak on Women's Day, and she mentioned risk modeling data sets used by banks do not address Latin America markets. Do you see finance industry addressing it?
Yes, that's exactly the field I am in. So that's the field I've been working for a couple of decades now. Like I mentioned, when I started in this field, now the data is very limited. The algorithm, the logic, the business processes are hard-coded, hand-coded, and very rigid, not flexible for fluctuation. Number three, they are designed for one market and are launched globally across several markets, which means the nuances and the behaviors of markets outside are not always taken into consideration. Lastly, more importantly, they are not as robust to accommodate a market situation. If there is a shock in, let's say, an emerging market in terms of economy or demography or health, it does not adjust itself. It takes several years or cycles to adjust the algorithm and relaunch. So the problem is real, and that's exactly my field. That's why today, corporations, investment banks, and companies are partnering with smaller startups so we can address the problem together in a more agile fashion. For example, a corporation in US may partner with a startup in Latin America and build a product that includes Latin American behavior and data sets so that the model is inclusive, non-biased, and is also more agile to market conditions.
How can one leverage the help women in AI is offering through their initiatives? And also, how can one contribute to these initiatives? What are the different ways in which one can make a dent in the AI space with the help of women in AI?
All right, so it's extremely easy. If anyone is interested, as I predominantly take care of US, Canada, and Mexico, so in any of these regions, if you are interested, you can go to our LinkedIn page or our website. There is an email address. You can just send us an email. I can drop the email also here. You can notify you're interested in either learning or mentoring or participating in any other initiative. And then we can find fitment for your specific interest. It could be you want to learn AI. Okay, we can arrange for that. It could be that you're already an expert in AI, but want to build a portfolio. Then it would involve pairing you with a mentor so you can learn practically applying AI to a business problem, build your portfolio. Or you can also be interested in participating in our hackathons or accelerator programs, any of the above, all of the above. So you can just drop us an email and or even follow us on LinkedIn. Both are easy ways to find out how we can get involved.
Bhuva, what about research domain? Like how is women in AI trying to advance research in AI, and what are the encouragements that it is giving?
Sure. So we do have a separate team that focuses on research in AI. We have a research lab. Today we have that at our global team with Europe. But if anyone is interested to learn more about that, please reach out to me. We can always involve you. Every year we take up a topic and we do research by our own. As you know, we are a non-profit company, which means we have no funds. We have a lot of people who kind of help us with monetary funds or non-monetary resources so that we can perform this research. So recently we released a research about bias in AI for women in workplace. So we did launch this globally. We interviewed several AI folks, predominantly women and underrepresented communities in a lot of countries, not just in US or Europe. We gathered research, we worked with corporate partners, and we published the research report. It's available on our website. I can share the detail also. That gives specific recommendations to corporates as to how to improve workplace conditions for women to enter into artificial intelligence, and not only just enter, continue to remain engaged and interested, right? So with this report, we also got a few calls from corporates asking us to do a masterclass for them, right? Which means corporates today may have some challenges to immediately switch their business model to accommodate more women and be interested in long-term employment with artificial intelligence kind of roles. So we are helping with the masterclass series with that. I know Sudha is involved in Stanford a lot. I also am working with a couple of research students from US team by myself on how we can bring community-based learning for artificial intelligence for universities like Stanford. The problem statement there is, so, before pandemic, we all were in person and going to classes, having a community. But with the pandemic, we shifted to online learning. There is more flexibility in learning. No one is trying to stick to the 4-year model or 2-year model anymore. And more importantly, the concept of community engagement is lacking. And this is another area where we partner with universities like Stanford to bring the community concept to traditional learning of artificial intelligence. And again, if there are other areas anyone wants to get involved in research, just drop us an email. I'll work with you.
Where do you see the value of women in AI in your fintech field? Any examples from that?
Yeah, definitely. So these days, my focus is more on financial inclusion rather than building fintech products. So what does financial inclusion mean, right? So financial inclusion, like digital inclusion, social inclusion, diversity and inclusion, focuses primarily on bringing financial services to women and underbanked communities. And in addition, enable small businesses that are not part of the broader e-commerce system to be participating in that system, right? Like, for example, today online, you have a lot of businesses, stores that have huge presence, have a lot of resources, but a small business may or may not have the resources, funds, operational expertise to enable them on a digital platform to sell their products, make money, generate savings, help investments in their local community. So with Women in AI and my focus personally is how can we bring financial inclusion for individuals as well as small businesses to be part of the larger financial ecosystem. And of course, with goes without saying, applying artificial intelligence, machine learning. And in addition to that, we are also working on blockchain these days with Web3 development.
We talked about career pivoting to fintech earlier. Now we want to focus on career pivoting to AI. At Business School of AI, we have multiple courses related to AI, and the students leverage on that as well as mentoring from Sudha to carve a path in AI. According to you, what are the challenges that mid level professionals face when they want to career pivot to AI?
Correct. That's exactly where we also help from Women in AI, right? Not only just artificial intelligence, but even to learn any technology, right? At mid-level, if you're a corporate professional or a private professional or an academic professional, you are an expert in a specific industry. And then you are learning a technology to apply and still leverage the skills you have from the industry. So what we should be very cautious about is the extensive knowledge and expertise that you have gathered from industry is not going to go waste, and you're not going to start scratch from learning artificial intelligence as a technology. So that's why at the start I said technology is going to evolve, but learning how to solve a business problem that impacts a community or an individual or a society or a country at large is extremely important, so you can learn and evolve for the matching technology. So for this at Women in AI, what we provide is mentorship and coaching. Anyone who has mid-level experience may not be able to leave their job, which means in their free time, they can talk to mentors, identify a career path or a curriculum, and learn online, build a hands-on portfolio free of cost with few corporate partners we have. Intel is one such partner for us. Their AI lab has helped us in the last year. We'll continue to work with them this year. And thirdly, we also provide connections to career recruiters via our community who can post job offers and kind of prepare them for the next level in their career. And it's going to happen in the side in parallel to whatever you're doing in a regular basis. So there is no distraction to your day-to-day life and revenue that you need to run your life.
Bhuva, when you talk about the various initiatives that are there for the mid-level career professionals, so what about the leadership roles in AI? Is there anything for that where the people with 15 years of experience, or 20 years of experience, and they are looking at AI? Because the AI winter is indeed over, and we see the confluence of AI with different technologies, especially those with domain expertise. How can they use their domain expertise and do something in AI such that they will make an impact?
Sure, we definitely need such leaders, especially with the pandemic. I can give you an example also, right? So suddenly with the pandemic, everything went online. We needed more digital banking services. We needed everyone to be online, even at the corners of the world where they may not be digital access. And in those scenarios, we really need leaders who have done this in other industries and can enable it for the future trend. A couple of ways we do, and predominantly in Capgemini, right? That's where we started with the FinTech Visor initiative, right? So we need experts who can evaluate startups, who can evaluate new products that can be launched in the market We need leaders, not only just AI engineers, to strategize for a pandemic situation or a war situation, especially with fintech and regulatory compliance that's evolving on a day-to-day basis. Beyond just learning to code and knowing a technology, we need to have leaders who have the expertise to transform and innovate on the fly in real time, right? So that's where leaders are really very, very important. And we have a lot of such leaders, both in Capgemini and at Women in AI.
Bhuva, what about students in universities, master students, doctoral students? So is there somewhere they can pitch in, especially in the research domain, and do something at Women in AI?
Yes. So for students, definitely we have two things. One is we conduct a hackathon every year. Students can participate in that, work with large corporations like Intel, work with other startup founders, designers, product engineers who are trying to build a product or solve a societal challenge, right? So anyone who's a student who knows AI, machine learning, something to do with data analytics, welcome to join there, because those hackathons, when they happen, they are not just restricted to that week of hackathon. Those teams we have seen have continued to work together, either in their startup journey or in their corporate journey. And it's a good practical learning for students entering this field to build for their career, right? So that's one we can certainly do. The research field, like I mentioned, right? We have a lot of PhDs, not only in North America team, but globally also, who work on specific research topics. And again, we are a non-profit organization. So we partner with either in Europe, we partner with European Union, in US, we partner with corporations. We can co-author these research reports and can conduct masterclass series for corporates and other government institutions that are interested. So if anyone is interested in the research category, we can work on a plan around that. So that's one of the example I mentioned also with Stanford I'm working on.
Working in an organization has many benefits and perks, but at some point, professionals have the urge to start up. They'll have an idea and would want to create a startup and raise funds. Can you narrate how the startup ecosystem is different from an organizational setup? We hear a
Yeah.
lot of funding related news. Can you break down the startup journey from a founder's perspective?
Definitely, definitely. So that's one of the reasons why we launched an accelerator program at Women in AI also, right? Number one, you may need resources either in terms of people or infrastructure to build a product. And if you are an independent, diverse founder, you may or may not have these resources. Thirdly, in the corporate sector, you have a large team that performs different actions separately. But as a startup founder, you are one person who should be an expert in everything. And you may not become an expert in everything overnight. And that's where you talk to mentors, you get advisors to help you navigate through the journey of areas where you may not have a lot of experience. Lastly, and more importantly, so once you have built all this, you need funds if you are not able to self-fund to launch it at a larger scale, right? So launch it at a country level, across a region or multiple countries. Funding, especially to fund social impact startups, is very difficult. Even though we see a lot of angels and VC funds out there, the investment thesis is many times restricted to revenue generation than impact generation, right? So that's why with this program, we help with identifying non-revenue impact metrics that will enable founders to raise funds beyond just the dollar itself, because the goal of a social impact startup is not only just to generate revenue, but also create impact, right? So those are the nuances that you should be aware of if you want to launch a startup in AI field, especially as a diverse founder, and see where and how to look for funds. And that's predominantly an area we help at Women in AI.
What are challenges you faced as a woman founder, and where are the avenues women can look for when they want to create a startup? Are there mentors or organizations which offer this kind of expertise?
So that's why we have communities like yourself, right? And our communities. I would definitely say challenge is having a network, to have an advisor, to reach out to someone in cases of crisis, right? So that's extremely, extremely critical, because as a founder, you are looking at everything end to end, and you don't have a team of 20 people who you are paying, unlike a corporate, which means having a network or a community like us, like how you have and I have, is very, very important. Having an advisor or a mentor is also important to address any non-strength areas that you may have. And thirdly, funding typically is happening, not always, by word of mouth, right? So if you have trust of 10 people, if they know an investor, he or she may be interested to invest in you for a product that you are yet to launch, right? So that's a very big ask. So I would definitely say networking, being part of a community like ours or similar, and have trusted advisors who can help you navigate the investor ecosystem.
So we learned about the startup ecosystem and the startup journey. So your focus on financial inclusion, gender equality, economic growth, girls in STEM, diverse social impact investments have us wanting to learn more about each of these initiatives. If you could give us a sneak peek into this, we would want to keep ourselves knowledgeable and leverage on the opportunities, and some of us would like to contribute to them.
Definitely, definitely. So one is, so since I have various career paths, I can give a couple of examples. And anyone is interested, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll post it here. One is in companies like Capgemini, we are always looking for people who are learning artificial intelligence, but are also able to apply it with behavioral concepts in mind, not just crunch the data, build an algorithm, but also take into consideration who your end customer is and adjust to the psychology of the customer. So if anyone is interested, let me know and I can connect you with folks there. That's on the corporate traditional career path. In terms of gender equality and girls in STEM, between Capgemini as well as Women in AI, we predominantly focus more on hackathons and mentorship. Beyond me, there are a lot of good mentors available in both organizations. If anyone is interested to either shift their career or get a mentor, we can work on that. Participating in hackathons is really, really helpful to even identify your career path. So those are two options in both organizations we can help with. And lastly, the financial inclusion piece. So I am working on the financial inclusion piece beyond just Capgemini and Women in AI on my own with a startup. So we focus on small businesses getting economic access and also diverse individuals getting financial access, right? So if anyone is interested to either learn more about it or get connected to other mentors in this space, you can also reach out to me. Our goal is to enable small businesses easily be accessible to day-to-day customers in terms of promoting everyone in the economic ecosystem.
Bhuva, we looked at fintech, we looked at AI, and we saw the confluence of both of them. So here we want to talk more about the automation. Generally, when we talk about automation, there is always this fear that automation will take away the jobs of people.
Hmm.
Automation is a very beautiful engineering concept where the man hours of uh, the employees are reduced and the productivity is improved. But there is always this thought that runs in people's mind that it will remove the jobs of people. What do you have to say about this?
Um, I gave an example earlier, right? Especially in the field of artificial intelligence and finance, human analysts are more important now than ever, because what the technology is doing is process large data sets. Technology is also enabling patterns, making decisions faster, getting more dimensions and variables into decision-making process. But there are mistakes possible. There is bias possible. There is less transparency that's possible. So we spoke about an example of Latin America. It may not include all permutations and combinations across all markets. And these are scenarios where a human analyst is extremely essential in financial technology to verify the decisions from the AI algorithm and then approve for real execution. So in all financial institutions, in my experience, based on what I have seen, both in investment banking side as well as on the startup side, the financial decisions go through a workflow process. It's also known as process workflow automation, right? So automation means not just automate a task and let it do whatever it wants, right? So automation means automate a specific task, but run through human intelligence for a final approval workflow before it takes effect, because it can impact people's lives, countries' lives, global economy, and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't say, at least in financial technology and artificial intelligence, there is a replacement, but it's going to rather it's going to help us fast track the decision making process, make it more accurate, reduce fatigue, right? So those are few things I see as an advantage.
Bhuva, talking about women in AI, we saw how AI is making great strides and how women in AI helps professionals get onto the AI bandwagon. So here, when we talk about AI, we would like to know few of the technologies in AI, a subset of technologies that you see has a lot of impact in the next 2 or 3 years.
Sure. So I predominantly work with data and data processing. So the technologies that I use in extent is anything that's a data analysis technology, or data processing technology, or data visualization technology that's within AI machine learning and data science sector. Python is something we use a lot within our company. But what I have seen in financial institutions is we have our own programming language in many scenarios. We have our own algorithms, and we leverage products that use some of these technologies. So traditionally speaking, so there is our software, there are a lot of softwares from investment banking sector. So I would not say learning a technology and going into a financial institution, let's say you are never going to be a Python programmer, rather you may be an engineer in the risk management space, in the credit decisioning space, which will involve your Python coding skills, plus working with that corporate's proprietary products, programs, and also in some cases, proprietary software to solve a problem. These days, in my experience, with what I have seen, we don't just write 100% using one technology.
Bhuva, when we talk about the initiators of women in AI, there is a question in our minds. So, how can we contribute to women in AI initiators? Like, how do we bring in our community, our contacts into this? And one of the important aspects of WeeklyWed is that it's an international space. Students come from all over the world. So, how is women in AI creating impact all through the world?
So definitely, if someone is joining from North America, you can reach us via the email address and the LinkedIn profile that I shared. We don't have one program for a one targeted demographic. We have variety of programs. We always make sure anyone who writes to us, one of us talk to them individually and then decide on which would fit them best. If anyone is interested beyond North America, also you can just drop me a note or connect via LinkedIn, and I can introduce you to other research and other student initiatives or even career initiatives ongoing in other regions. We are very easy to reach, and we always talk to everyone one-on-one before we decide on how we can engage together.
Bua, it was really nice to have you at WeeklyWed. There was many key learnings that we got. And more than anything, to hear about women in AI and about the fintech journey gave us this kind of confidence that we can reach out, we can contribute, and we can get help if need be, either for us or for our friends. So thank you, Bua, for coming and giving us all the knowledge to all the students here.
Definitely. Thanks, Yash. Thanks, Sudha. Thanks, Susanna, for this opportunity. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, drop a question or follow us on Women in AI. And even if something is not listed on my profile, if you would like to get connected, feel free. Thank you.
Okay, so we have IoT Day on April 9th, and we are having women AI speakers all through the day, and we have a nice series of sessions planned for IoT Day on April 9th. So please keep in touch, and we will catch you for the IoT Day. And the main aspect of the IoT Day on April 9th is the focus on AI research. So catch you everyone, and thanks for joining. Thank you, Bhuva, once again.
Thanks, Yash. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you for joining WeeklyWed. WeeklyWed is a happy place to share, learn, explore, and happens every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Catch you at the next WeeklyWed. Bye bye.